and welcome to this Thursday edition of the World Report, viewers. I'm Arjun, Samar, Mahendran. Let's take a look at what's making headlines around the world. Now, in yet another surprising maneuver, viewers, US President Donald Trump has given the green light to tougher pressure on Russia. A bipartisan sanctions bill is now currently moving forward as we get you this broadcast in US Congress. And what's more, well, it could face a whole vote as early as next week. That's correct. Republican Senator Lindsey says Trump approved the push after meeting with him Wednesday. A statement you see right there on your television screens right now. What about the bill? Well, this bill targets countries still doing business with Moscow, especially those buying Russian oil. That's correct. Now, the claimed goal, as per what Washington says, is to choke off money fueling Russia's war in Ukraine, which, as you all know, is now in its fourth year. Now, Graham points to India, China and Brazil particularly as major buyers who could still face harsh penalties. Now, till now, congressional leaders had opposed the bill while Trump focused on tariffs instead. However, momentum is back and a strong bipartisan vote is expected next week, as we just informed you. Now, if passed, Trump would still control how these sanctions are imposed. Amid growing American control over Venezuela's oil, the U.S. military has now seized two oil tankers, the Marinera and the Sofia. Now, both of them are linked to Venezuela after tracking it across the Atlantic over the past 2 weeks. This was done as part of a U.S. blockade of Venezuelan oil exports. In fact, viewers, a video shared by U.S. Southcom shows the moment a U.S. Coast Guard boarded the oil tanker Sofia in what it calls a meticulously coordinated operation. The U.S. also seized its Marinera, a Russian-flagged oil tanker that was being shadowed by a Russian submarine, we're getting to learn. Now, that's a move that could drastically increase tensions between Washington and Moscow. Originally called the Bella 1, the tanker was sanctioned by the U.S. back in 2024 for operating with a shadow fleet of tankers transporting illicit oil. Meanwhile, Moscow has issued a strong condemnation of Washington, asserting that no country whatsoever has the right to use force against vessels lawfully registered under another state's jurisdiction, particularly here on the high seas. Meanwhile, my colleague Jagruti gets you the latest from Washington, D.C.
US President Donald Trump's pressure campaign on sanctioned oil is showing no signs of slowing down. The head of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, detailed the pre-dawn operations on X. She said the Coast Guard conducted back-to-back meticulously coordinated boarding of two Ghost Fleet tanker ships, one in the North Atlantic Sea and one in international waters near the Caribbean. The former, the Bella 1, is believed to have set off from Iran to pick up oil from Venezuela. But after being pursued by the US military, it altered course, changing its name to the Marinera. The US Southern Command accused the vessel of violating US sanctions. The UK confirmed it had assisted the US operation. Britain's Defence Secretary calling the Bella 1 tanker part of a Russian-Iranian axis of sanctions evasion. Moscow, an ally of Caracas, has accused Washington of violating international law. In her first briefing on Venezuela since Nicolas Maduro's capture, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt didn't give clarity on whether the seizure risks flaring tensions between Russia and the United States. Nevertheless, it demonstrates the danger of geopolitical spillover from the US campaign against Venezuela.
We stay with the US now, viewers, where a woman was fatally shot by a US immigration officer in Minneapolis. Authorities have confirmed. The Department of Homeland Security says the incident occurred when a violent rioter allegedly tried to run over an immigration officer, or an ICE officer, as they are referred to there in the United States. DHS Chief Kristi Noem has said that the officer opened fire in self-defense to protect himself. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump has blamed the radical left and defended immigration agents who fatally shot the woman, arguing that the officer acted in self-defense. However, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey has challenged the federal account of events and is calling, in fact, for immigration and customs informant or ICE agents to leave the city altogether. Stay with Minneapolis, where hundreds rallied and joined the vigil after a woman was killed during Minneapolis ICE immigration crackdown. Crowds gathered in Minneapolis on Wednesday as they protested and held a vigil for a woman, in fact, killed during the Trump administration's latest immigration crackdown on Wednesday. The Minneapolis motorist was shot down during an immigration and customs enforcement latest operation in the city, in an incident that federal officials have claimed was an act of self-defense by an officer. However, that the city's mayor has described the action as reckless and unnecessary. Meanwhile, we get you some reactions from the vigil.
Who keeps us safe? We keep us safe. Who keeps us safe? We keep us safe. Who keeps us safe? We keep us safe. Show me what community looks like. This is what community looks like. Show me what community looks like. This is what community looks like.
And it's not only Venezuelan oil or the immigration protests. US President Donald Trump, is also escalating his rhetoric over Greenland. That's correct. Now he's triggering sharp reactions in Europe and also raising very serious questions about America's intent in the Arctic. Now, is this just a political bluster, more political bluster coming in from the White House, or a real strategic warning? Well, here's a report.
In the Arctic silence of Greenland, a loud new claim is echoing from Washington. Is the clock ticking for Greenland as Donald Trump sets his eyes on the island after his stunning Venezuela operation?
We need Greenland from a national security situation. It's so strategic. Right now, Greenland is covered with Russian and Chinese ships all over the place. We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security. And Denmark is not going to be able to do it, I can tell you.
US President Donald Trump is weighing a range of options to bring Greenland under American control, including the possible use of US military. According to reports, discussions include several pathways to achieve the goal: purchasing the territory from Denmark or negotiating an agreement directly with Greenland. Military options are also being considered. The US already has 2 treaties to safeguard Greenland. Under the first agreement, it can deploy troops to the island and build bases. The NATO treaty obliges the US to respond militarily in the event of an attack on Greenland, which is protected by the military alliance. While Trump's Greenland plans have been brushed off by the island's PM, Denmark has warned that the American president is serious about Greenland takeover and that it would end the powerful military alliance.
Will that be successful? Will they execute on it? How long will they take? I have no idea, because Trump has no idea.
What Trump is actually going to do about his Greenland takeover plans, no one really knows. Greenland remains Danish and not for sale. But in Trump's world, nothing seems completely off the table. Vishal Vivek for NDTV World.
US President Donald Trump has signed a memorandum directing his country's withdrawal from 66 international organizations which, in Washington's words, no longer serve American interests. That's correct. The White House has announced this on social media platform X, starting with Trump's America First slogan. The statement said they comprise of 31 UN entities and 35 other non-UN organizations. According to the list published on the White House website, most of the targets are UN-related agencies, commissions, and even advisory panels focusing on climate change, global governance, labor, and other important issues that the Trump administration has categorized as promoting diversity and woke agenda. US President Donald Trump spoke with his Colombian counterpart Gustavo Petro on Wednesday. The Colombian leader told his supporters during a rally in capital Bogota. Now, Petro said Wednesday that Trump pulled back on his tone during a conversation that lasted roughly an hour. Petro also added that he had invited Trump for a private meeting, but instead the pair decided to hold talks in Washington. Now, during his speech, he also told supporters that he had called for a 3-way meeting between Colombia, the US, and interim Venezuelan President Delcy Rodriguez. Here's Petro for you.
De esta conversación personal, no podemos bajar la guardia Todavía toca hablar en la Casa Blanca. Hablé también hace 2 días con la presidenta actual en Venezuela, Lindsey. Ella la conozco desde el principio de todo esto. La invité a Colombia y queremos establecer un diálogo tripartito y ojalá mundial para estabilizar el que la sociedad venezolana, que como en Colombia podría estallar en violencia entre ella misma, no se produzca.
We now take you to West Asia, viewers, where Israel has cleared the final hurdle before starting construction on a contentious settlement project near Jerusalem, in fact, that would effectively cut the West Bank into 2 different halves. Now, the tender, which seeks bids from developers already, would clear the way to begin construction of the E1 project, the very controversial E1 project. The anti-settlement monitoring group Peace Now First reported the tender. Yoni Mizrahi, meanwhile, the person who runs the group's Settlement Watch division, said initial work could begin within the month. Settlement development in E1, by the way, an open tract of land in east of Jerusalem, has been under consideration for more than 2 decades now. However, it was frozen due to US pressure during previous administrations. Here's more.
That means that the state can also begin laying infrastructure at the site. The tract of land that this settlement is supposed to be on is called E1, and it runs from the outskirts of Jerusalem into the West Bank. And rights groups say that building a settlement there would make travel from north to south of the territory quite difficult, would make mobility difficult from East Jerusalem to the Palestinian urban areas of Bethlehem and Ramallah, and would create a situation on the ground where Palestinian cities are largely isolated and connected only by roads, tunnels, and bridges.
Now we stay with the region, where the UN's resident and humanitarian coordinator for Iraq says that the agency is not leaving the country and its presence in the country will shift from a more mission-led and also political orientation to more development focus. Ghulam Iskai has made the remarks Wednesday in New York at the United Nations Assistance Mission in Iraq, or the UNAMI, UNAMI as it's called. It concludes its work in the country. Iskai has said that 25 UN agencies operate to support Iraq's developmental needs. He also pointed out that Iraq recently has signed a UN cooperation framework for the next 5 years, focusing on 4 key pillars of economic reform, social protection and service delivery, environment and climate change, and also governance here and human rights, and of course the rule of law. Here's the UN humanitarian envoy for you.
The UN is not leaving Iraq. The UN is staying in Iraq. We have 25 UN agencies that operate under the resident coordinator system to support Iraq's development needs. Now, what we are saying is that our presence in Iraq is shifting from a more mission-led and also political orientation to more development focus.
And viewers, the mercury is rising, or should I say it perpetually keeps on rising. Why am I saying this? Well, 2025 has been ranked amongst the 3 warmest years on record, underscoring the continued acceleration of climate warming. This is according to data released by the China Met Administration's National Climate Center. Not only this, the data shows that the global average surface temperature in 2025 was 1.40 degrees Celsius higher than pre-industrial levels, defined as an average temperatures between 1850 and the 1900s, and 0.52 degrees Celsius above the long-term norm, the center said. Now, the past 3 years have also been the warmest 3 consecutive years since Met records initially began, indicating a persistent warming trend worldwide, according to the data. And well, with that, it's time we slip into a short break. US News continues on the other side. Don't you go anywhere. Welcome back, viewers. On to updates from the world of tech and business now, where clouds flooded the freshly opened showroom floors on day 2 of the CES and were met by thousands of robots, AI companions, assistants, health longevity tech, wearables, and much more. Allergic to dogs or cats but still dreaming of a furry companion? Worry no more. Chinese tech brand Olobot may have an answer in its new cyber pet, Olo-Ni, which debuted at the show as well. Now, the company says the furry AI robot on wheels is meant to be a warm and expressive alternative to the rigid humanoid home robot. A screen mounted at the robot's neck acts as its face, allowing it to make eye contact with humans and respond with thousands of dynamic expressions, specially designed to mirror human emotion and interaction.
Because of fur allergy, many people is unable to have a real pet, and so actually we see this market. Yeah, like me, actually I want a pet in very early, but my family members don't allow.
And gadgets promoting a wide array of health benefits, viewers, have also gone on display at the annual Consumer Electronics Show, or the CES, being held in Las Vegas. AI is the latest trend in healthcare technology, needless to say, and companies have been showing off their AI products designed to improve health, track hormones, and even increase accessibility to medical information. However, health and tech experts have warned about the effectiveness of these gadgets and have also, in fact, urged consumers to know what their data is doing and where their data, more importantly, is going. Emerging technology comes at a time when the federal government is also removing barriers for generative AI's use. We get you more.
Well, I think for any system that is collecting information about you, you have to ask, where's that information going? And what is it being used for? In healthcare, this is especially important since, of course, sometimes this can be very, very sensitive information. So that's the first question. And one of the things that is eternally frustrating to me about a lot of the gadgets and things that you see at CES is that information is very hard to find.
On to the world of sports now, where, viewers, the T20 season is almost here. The Women's Premier League, the Indian Premier League, international cricket. It's a billion-rupee ecosystem created stars overnight. But behind every six and every mega contract is a quieter story. A story of coaches who spot talent early, shape champions, and then slip into the shadows. For many of them, viewers, the grind never ends. The rewards rarely arrive. This report decodes just that.
This modest academy is where Richa Ghosh began. Walking in at 4, batting at 6, wicket-keeping at 10. Her first coach, Gopal Saha. Today, Richa is an Indian star, earning 2.75 crore per WPL season. The town celebrates her rise. Gopal Saha's life, though, remains unchanged. Long days, packed nets, little time for family.
मेरा हिसाब से सुनिए, सिलीगुड़ी में जैसे स्टेडियम का तो बोल दिया जैसे स्टेडियम होगा उसका नाम पे, बहुत कुछ ना, जैसे ग्राउंड नहीं है, हम लोग का सिलीगुड़ी में ग्राउंड ही नहीं है सर, ग्राउंड ही नहीं है, ग्राउंड होना चाहिए, गवर्नमेंट को और थोड़ा डेवलप करना चाहिए ना, जो सब जहाँ प्रैक्टिस कर रहा है लोगों का ऊपर और फोकस देना पड़ेगा, एक रीचा क्यों 10 रीचा उठना चाहिए ना.
More children, less space and little sign of cricket's riches reaching the grassroots. At 66, Sanat Kumar has coached names like Pathan brothers, the Pandyas and Robin Uthappa. A stroke ended his career. Help came not from institutions but from his former students.
Now, in the current scenario, actually, coaching is a full-time job and you can survive. You can definitely survive with coaching. Even in the lowest level, they are paid pretty decently. Now, probably, I think juniors, if you handle a junior side in a state, most of the association will give you around 10 to 15 lakhs per annum. That's the minimum.
Sanat acknowledges progress since the IPL era began, but says the gap remains stark.
I still remember that time it was a huge offer. Probably around 3 years, it was roughly around 1 crore. So that was the offer they had given with incentives. With performance, you will get this much of incentive, which was something huge at that time.
Satish Samant, coach to Shivam Dubey and others, offers a blunt truth.
जो कोचेस उसका यूटिलाइजेशन करते हैं, जो अच्छे अपने जैसे एक लाइक प्रोडक्ट है, अगर देखा जाए तो अच्छा कोई किसने अच्छा मार्केटिंग किया, जो अच्छा मार्केटिंग कर सकता है उसको उसका बेनिफिट होता है। जो अच्छा नहीं मार्केटिंग करते, जो बिलीव नहीं करते, लाइक हमारे जैसे कोचेस हम लोग इस पर बिलीव नहीं करते मार्केटिंग पे। जो हमारा प्लेयर है वो खेल रहा है, बस खेल रहा है, उसको अपने लाइफ जीने दो। हमारा काम है ग्राउंड पे काम करो, बाकी उसके ऐसे और प्लेयर बनाओ। तो जो अच्छा मार्केटिंग कर सकता है उसको बेनिफिट मिलता है।
Elite coaches are rewarded, grassroots coaches are not, yet they are the ones who first spot the raw diamond and patiently polish it. For every superstar under the lights, there's a coach in the shadows, still waiting for the game to remember them. With Anuj, Ritu and Ronnie, Rika Roy for NDTV.